Hi everyone, welcome inside the fish tank. I am Thomas Foss alongside with my co-host Nick Fasella and Andrew Sferator. And let's just say it has been a crazy week too. We got injuries everywhere. We got a couple people that just haven't been performing the way they are. And it's been an interesting first 2 weeks to start the season. Fish, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the headline for week two is the injuries, and not just injuries to any players, but injuries to star players. And when I think about it, I can't really help but not to think about the lack of training camp in the off season and the lack of, the lack of preseason and real, training camp and football action. I can't help but think that that has to do a part with these injuries. And man, you can see by our two jerseys,
Oh
McCaffrey and
yeah.
Barkley, it's just been brutal.
Yeah, I think an interesting start is an understatement to what's been going on. This is a crazy start to the first 2 weeks of the NFL season. I mean, if this injury play continues throughout the season, the NFL is going to be in some trouble. They might have to implement some more changes to prevent all these players from going down. It's just unreal.
Now, in
Yeah, it
fantasy
really
now,
is. As you
to
can
bring
see.
to bring the fantasy aspect into it, we all knew going into this fantasy year that it was going to take more luck than years prior, and I just think that this week is putting that to the ultimate test. It's just going to be whoever's team is standing, together in one piece at the end that's going to win it all.
Yeah, definitely. For me and you, Fish, I mean, McCaffrey and Saquon, I would assume that they went 1 and 2 in almost every single league. And it's detrimental to teams like us because we get that first pick. We got our star player, superstar player, and then you don't pick until for us 23, 24 for 10 teams, 19, 20, and like that next guy is just not going to perform the same as CMC or Saquon, and it really hurts your fantasy team. Like my number two now is James White. I mean, it hurts us big time.
Yeah, and this part of the game is what separates the good fantasy football players and the great fantasy football players. And if you're able to overcome these injuries, especially to the first overall pick of the draft, I mean, you're considered a great fantasy football player.
Yeah, definitely. And that is definitely what I will be trying to do along with Fish. And I say we start to get into these injuries now.
Yes, before we do get into those injuries, though, I just want to have a brief moment of silence for those that we have lost, including but not limited to Saquon Barkley, Cortland Sutton, and Christian McCaffrey. All right. Thank you for that. And now we will get into our long list of injuries. So, the aforementioned Saquon Barkley got hurt in the beginning of the game. He looked like he landed on his elbow funny. Came back in, first touch he gets, tears his ACL. Now, there's a few, every couple of years, there's a few injuries that you're just devastated to hear about. For me, one of those 2 years ago was when Deshaun Watson in practice, you heard the news that he tore his ACL. That was just devastating. And I think this is right up on that list with Saquon Barkley.
Gosh, I just can't. I mean, I just feel really bad for Saquon. I mean, he didn't perform up to expectation in week one, and it looked like he was having a pretty solid start to his week two, averaging 7 yards a carry with his first couple of carries that he got. And it's you said it's Ferrator, it's devastating. And it's even more concerning because I'm having questions about his availability for the start of week one next year, because the New York Times today reported that it's not just an ACL, it's a torn MCL and he's got a bunch of other ligaments that have damage to him in his knee. I mean, I don't think he starts off. I don't think he starts week one next year, which is going to be interesting next year for where Barkley starts. But in the meantime, Walsh. I mean, obviously today they signed Devonta Freeman. That should help Walsh. What do you think Devonta Freeman is this week? Is he a flex? Is he a start? Is he a bench? What is he?
He's at most a flex, I would say, but I don't think he's gonna know to play with him enough. And better yet, I just don't think the Giant you can rely on the Giants O line to give a good run game. I mean, you had Saquon who only had 12 points week 1, and we're talking an elite running back. Behind that old line, he can only get 12 points. So when you throw in Devontae Freeman, who it's going to be his first time playing since last year, and I don't know. I would honestly I would prefer Deion Lewis this week because you can rely on the pass catching, but I don't like Devontae Freeman this week. I just don't like any running back in that backfield, just for the pure reason that I just don't think the Giants O line would be able to help them.
Yeah, even though there's not that much like hype of Devontae Freeman signing, last year he played for the team he's been playing with his entire career in the Atlanta Falcons. He knew their system very well, and he knew their entire playbook. And he was not really good by any stretch of the imagination. So he's not getting any younger. Him coming to the Giants with a terrible offensive line, I just don't know if he'll have an immediate impact with the Giants.
Definitely. And I would also like to say this. I'm not even talking about like fantasy value for Saquon. I think this is a terrible injury for his career. I mean, you look at last year, it goes down for multiple weeks, and now this year, I mean, people have been saying this could be turning into a Derrick Rose type of situation, and I just hate to see this for the guy. Great guy, amazing ability, and I don't want to see his career go down this road. So hopefully he gets healthy, and if he does have to miss a couple of weeks in the beginning of next season, hopefully he comes back healthy and can give us almost a full season next year.
That's what you hope for all these guys that are injured. Next, we'll move on to someone similar to Saquon Barkley, Cortland Sutton, who also has a torn ACL, who also got injured prior to tearing his ACL. So maybe it makes you think, maybe if these coaches just took out these players when they got injured the first time, they wouldn't be in these terrible situations. But what fantasy impact does this have on the Denver Broncos?
I'll take this
Yeah,
one. Let
all
me
right,
take
sure,
this
go
next
ahead.
one for me, Fish. As both CMC and Quillen Sutton go down for me this week. I mean, he got off to a good start. He got a 20-yard pass on like the first drive of the game. I was happy he was back from being out week 1, and then honestly, I believe when it was first reported that he went out, it said that he had leg/knee cramping. That is what was reported. So I didn't think anything big of it. And then I get up Monday morning and apparently I see an alert call and sudden his knee's torn up, all this stuff. And it's going to hurt Denver and fantasy because him and Judy could have been very good together. They had a nice core going, and I think it could have been not as good, but like Julio and Ridley, like I think they could have worked off of each other because as much as Sutton was like the one, you still got to cover Judy. So I think both of these guys were going to have great years because I think both would have been mostly single coverage, and then you have Noah Fant to worry about. So I think both these guys were set for prime years, and I think Jerry Judy is going to have a very good rest of the year. But it's really disappointing Sutton has to go down like that.
Yeah, and when they say, as they say in fantasy, when one player goes down, an opportunity arises for another. And when I look at this Denver passing attack, I think the receiver I really expect to be their number one moving forward is the tight end Noah Fant. I mean, he's been spectacular the first 2 weeks. He's making these great catches. He's very athletic. And it looked like he had a pretty solid connection with Jeff Driscoll when Drew Lock, who we'll talk about next, got hurt. I mean, Jerry Judy, I think he's been, I don't know, I know he's a rookie, but he's been a little disappointing so far. I mean, I expected a little more from him with Sutton out in the first game and Sutton out for the majority of this game also. And a deep sleeper I look at moving forward that is available in most leagues is KJ Hamler, the speedster rookie wide receiver.
Yeah, it's just this is going to be an interesting situation to see how it plays out with the two rookies trying to fill that hole of Coyle and Sutton that won't be there for the rest of the year. So like Fish said, we're going to talk about his quarterback, Drew Lock, who went down with a rotator cuff sprain. He's out at least 2 weeks, and after that, he's going to be reevaluated. Now, what effect does this have on the Denver Broncos?
Now, I don't know if it's going to affect anybody's immediate fantasy. I don't know if anybody was really starting Drew Lock in fantasy, but I think the only thing to expect is just a slight downgrade in the Broncos passing attack. obviously we said Jeff Driscoll's the backup. I think he's a pretty capable backup. I think he'll be able to get the ball to those receivers for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to say this too. Going to the year, I wasn't that big of a fan, but with the injury and everything, I think Melvin Gordon has a step up in fantasy production the rest of the way. I mean, you saw last week he had a passing touchdown, 16.4, I believe, fantasy points. So he had a good week. And I think they really go run heavy now. I mean, Driscoll did fine last year in Detroit. Galladay stayed the same production wise. Galladay actually did very well last year. I think that Judy will be fine. Fant, as you said, I think Fant has a great year, but I think Melvin Gordon is the most impactful from this downfall of injuries. Besides, of course, Cortland Sutton owners, I think Gordon has a step up in production.
All right. That's the two main guys for that Denver Bronco offense go down. So that's too bad. Next, we're gonna move on to the guy who is on Thomas Walsh's shirt right now. It's Christian McCaffrey, high ankle sprain, out 4 to 6 weeks, but he does want to come back earlier. That's what Saquon Barkley said last year, but he ended up just reactivating it. So you just hate to see it.
Yeah, this is brutal. I mean, you're talking about the number one fantasy football player, and I know people argue Saquon, all these other guys. He is just the most consistent, the most impactful fantasy player you can have. And you hate, once again, just like all these guys, you hate to see him go down. Of course, from a fantasy aspect, I want to see him come back, but after looking at what happened to Saquon and Sutton and all these guys, I really think the Panthers, for his own well-being, need to make sure that he's ready to come back before he comes back. You heard him. He said he wants to get back out there, and it's going to be tough and a challenge, he said, to stay out this length. But he needs to make sure he comes back healthy, because if not, that would just be terrible if he re-aggravates it.
Now, this is a little bit of a tricky spot for McCaffrey owners because I know Sperator mentioned that he's out with a high ankle and he said he wants to come back earlier. It's a tricky spot because I'm not sure if I'm a McCaffrey and I want him to come back early, because that's only trouble for that we've seen in the past. That's only trouble for fantasy managers, because McCaffrey's going to have a tough time cutting on that ankle. He might have limited mobility, and he just might not be himself if he comes back early. And what would you rather have? A CMC out for 4 weeks and struggle the rest of the way a little bit? Or would you rather have him out for, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks and know that he's coming back next fully healthy and he's going to be the CMC that we all know and love?
I think the Carolina staff down there knows what they're doing. I think Christian McCaffrey's a smart guy, so I think they're gonna bring him back when they know he's fully healthy and ready to perform like he's been performing over the last year.
So, and when we talk about replacement for McCaffrey, Mike Davis is the clear handcuff to CMC. And Sperator, how would you view Mike Davis moving forward in the offense?
Well, Mike Davis actually had a pretty nice receiving week last year, even though it was mostly garbage time points. I believe he had like 6 or 8 catches. So I think he's going to be a solid starter for as long as Christian McCaffrey is out. And there's really no one else there to take away from those touches unless they decide to sign someone else.
Yeah, I would like to say something actually. I want to say to the fantasy football counselor that I'm sure some of you know who he is, considering you're watching Fantasy Football Podcast. The fantasy football counselor, his whole thing over the offseason was draft Saquon Barkley number 1 overall because CMC is going to have a downfall. So after CMC got hurt, he posted a video on TikTok and says, "Everyone, this is great news. Christian McCaffrey is hurt. This is great news." So I would just like to say it's messed up for you saying that, because he was smiling, he was happy, he was laughing about it because he thought he predicted something. So fantasy football counselor, that's messed up, and you should never wish for or be happy about injury. And I would just like to say
Yeah, let me take a second right here. This guy's a complete clown. I mean, seriously, he's wishing injury. He's wishing injury on somebody just so he could prove his point wrong. And guess what? It's not even right because Saquon Barkley got hurt also. And if they both stayed healthy, he'd look like even more of a clown because McCaffrey's way better than Barkley for fantasy. McCaffrey catches 100 passes a year, scores more than anyone else, and he's just the best overall fantasy running back. That guy's a complete clown. He has no idea what he's talking about.
I agree. I watched the one video of him talking about McCaffrey getting injured, and I just saw that my immediate reaction was, I want to fight this guy because this guy just pisses me off.
I'm there with you, Ferrator. I'm there.
All right, so back
Right.
to the injuries. We're moving to San Francisco, where they just had a brutal week for injuries down in MetLife Stadium. Both of their starting running backs, Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman, got injured. For Mostert, it's an MCL sprain, out 2 to 4 weeks, although there are talks of him playing this week, but I'm not so sure that's going to happen, especially
I don't
against the other New York team, the Giants. And for Tevin Coleman, it's a knee injury. He's going to be out multiple weeks. So who's going to step up in this backfield?
Drew McKinnon's the answer for you. McKinnon, he actually, I believe it was him that converted on the 3rd and 31 against the Jets.
Yes, it was.
It was. But as we've seen in Minnesota, he's good in the passing game. I mean, Jeff Wilson might get in there for some touches in the running game, but I think McKinnon will be the main guy back there. They were the one that signed him to that, I believe, 4-year contract after his big year in Minnesota when Dalvin Cook got hurt. So, I mean, he's a proven running back. I mean, he might not be as explosive or however you want to say as he was in Minnesota, but I mean, I think he's going to give you value PPR wise, and I think he'll give you some rushing yards. But Jeff Wilson too. Watch Jeff Wilson by the red zone too. For a couple of weeks last year, Jeff Wilson was their goal line back, so I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to that.
Yeah, I expect this backfield to be somewhat of a 50-50 split, and McKinnon's going to get the passing downs work, and he's going to get some carries too. He's the guy I prefer, but I also think Jeff Wilson gets the majority of the running downs work, and he's going to be their goal line back. So if you ask me who's more likely to score next week, it's Jeff Wilson, but who would I prefer in PPR fantasy? It's Jerick McKinnon, just because obviously of the passes he catches, but when I look at the San Francisco backfield, they don't typically hand the workload over to one guy. They're going to split between two guys no matter who's hurt. So I think both guys can be usable this week if you're in need of a low-end flex or maybe even a running back too.
That certainly is another interesting situation. We'll see how that plays out this week.
Yeah, I would also like to say, this is going to be a completely new 49ers offense that we are going to be seeing. I mean, Garoppolo might not play. Their two main backs are out. Deebo Samuel's still out. Kittle is banged up. I don't know his status for week 3 yet. This is going to be a new 49ers offense, so I really don't know what's going to happen fantasy-wise with this offense. I mean, Kendrick Bourne maybe for a receiver, but like they are banged up right now.
Yes, and staying in San Francisco, Thomas hinted at it. Their quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, high ankle sprains, considered week to week, although he does, like Mostert, have a chance to play Sunday. I do not think any of these guys, including George Kittle, are going to play against the Giants this week. So it's going to be the Nick Mullins show in San Francisco.
I think Garoppolo does have a chance to play just because they might sit him just based on the fact that they think they could beat the Giants, the 0-2 Giants, without him. But I don't expect to start a receiver in fantasy this week for the Niners. Obviously, you're starting Kittle if he plays. But just in general, I expect a slight downgrade in their passing attack. San Francisco, regardless of whether Jimmy G is in or not, they're going to be a run-heavy team. So I'm mostly staying away from San Francisco fantasy options, provided that George Kittle doesn't play.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I said, the only person that I would consider starting at receiver would be, I think, maybe a Kendrick Bourne, because there are just no other options, especially if Kittle plays. But I would try to stay away too. Their offense is just very banged up right now.
I think Jordan Reed, who had 2 touchdowns last week, could be a sneaky start if you're the Kittle owner and there's really no one else on the waiver wire. So moving to another California team, the Los Angeles Rams. Both of their starting running backs are injured. Cam Akers, with an interesting one, separated rib cartilage, considered day to day. He could play this week too. Malcolm Brown, fractured left pinky. He had it repaired yesterday, Monday, and I'm pretty sure he is going to play on Sunday versus the Bills.
Yeah, I think that this whole situation is just going to be one big mess for the rest of the way. After Malcolm Brown had his big games last Sunday night at SoFi Stadium on Sunday night versus the Cowboys, so it was a little surprising to see Cam Akers in there as the starter to get the first couple of carries of the game, which he obviously got hurt on. So we don't know what Cam Akers would have done the rest of the way. But then Malcolm Brown goes down also with his pinky. So Darrell Henderson turned out to be the main guy in that offense. Henderson had a pretty respectable day, and
He had
he's
a
going to be
great
the
day.
pass catcher there. Yeah, absolutely. And I think all three of these guys have a chance to play. I mean, if I had to guess which guy isn't going to, it'd be Akers. Brown's definitely going to play. But for next week, when the Rams go to Buffalo, I'm going to expect Brown to be the running downs back, and I'm going to expect Darrell Henderson to sprinkle in as change of pace and as the passing down and 2-minute drill back.
Yeah, I don't think the situation is gonna end up being that brutal for the Rams. I think that all of them have a chance to play, and I think if all of them do play, they will all split carries, so no one re-aggravates it. So I don't know if I would trust anyone in that backfield fantasy-wise, because I really don't think anyone is going to get more than 50% of the snaps. I really think it's going to be a three-way backfield, and I mean another thing with the injuries. I mean, you're getting like both running backs on the roster hurt, the top two guys. Like look at 49ers, Rams. So like this is really a concern because multiple running backs are going down, and
The
I
same
don't know.
backfield.
I don't get it. I really don't.
Yep. So now we're going to move to a guy who missed basically all of last year. The second-year player, Paris Campbell of the Indianapolis Colts, injured his PCL, and he'll be out indefinitely. So there's not even a timetable with this one. This is just going to be a wait and see how it heals. And for the meantime, they're going to need other guys to step up. So who do we think those guys are?
The obvious guy to look at is Michael Pittman Jr., the rookie receiver. Pittman Jr. played 92% of the snaps with Campbell going out early in that game. I expect Pittman to play a big role, a significant role moving forward. T.Y. Hilton, who's been a little disappointing, we'll talk about him later. He's also there with Zach Pascal, who's been there for several years now. So if I had to rank these receivers on who I'd want moving forward, I'd go Hilton, Close, Pittman, and then maybe ... Zach Pascal.
Yeah, I think going into the year when we made our rookie receiver rankings, Pittman was, I believe I had him at number 5. So I've always been a big Pittman guy, and I think right here is his opportunity to step up. 7.7 fantasy points last week, and now with Paris Campbell going down, I mean, I think he's that big target that we all know Philip Rivers loves to use. So I would look for him, and then hopefully T.Y. Hilton can get it going. I don't know, but I think Pittman, people should look out for him.
All right. Next, similar situation here. New York Giants, Sterling Shepard has turf toe and will be out at least 1 week, but he will probably miss more weeks. So what do we think? How do we think this impacts the other Giants receivers?
I think the play here is definitely Darius Slayton moving forward for as long as Shepard's out. Ever since, based on results of last year and week 1 this year, when Darius Slayton has had at least one of Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, or Evan Ingram out, he's been wide receiver 1 material and been the clear target for Daniel Jones. I would have Slayton as a high-end wide receiver 2, and I would definitely start him for as long as Shepard's out.
Yeah, I would agree. I've been high on Slayton a lot too, and I think, like you said, Fish, he gives you wide receiver one material more than people think. Like he gives good production. He has weeks where he goes off. Week 1, I believe he had 26,
Yeah,
24,
2
something around
touchdowns.
there.
Yeah.
And another guy I want to look at, he is on my fantasy roster, but I think Evan Ingram might start to creep his way back. Week 1 was not a good week for him. Week 2, 6 catches for 60-something yards. And Daniel Jones actually looked for him towards the end of the game after Saquon got hurt and when he was trying to lead back the Giants. He looked for Ingram. So I think Slay and Ingram are both two guys to look out for, and hopefully Ingram can get it going.
I actually have an interesting little factoid here. In his brief career with the New York Giants, Daniel Jones has had Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, and Darius Slayton all in the game at the same time once. And that one time was last game. But it didn't really last that long as Sterling Shepard left with turf toe. So Daniel Jones, sorry, you're going to have to be dealing with a shortened wide receiver core yet again. Moving on to another New York receiver, Rashad Perryman of the New York Jets, sprained his ankle, considered week to week. This Jets receiving core is already completely depleted, and this guy who had a decent amount of hype going to the season is now going to be sidelined for a couple of weeks.
The Jets are the worst team in the NFL, and it's not even close. I mean, I would not start a Jet player in fantasy even if you paid me. I mean, seriously, this is really, really brutal. The Jets are at Indianapolis next week, and I don't see it getting much better for them. No Jets should be anywhere near your starting lineup, and maybe nowhere near your entire roster.
Yeah, coming from a Jets fan, Rashad Perriman, this injury has no impact on fantasy. They were doing nothing anyway. This really has no impact on fantasy. Although, Fish, I do want to disagree with something you said. I still think Jameson Crowder has fantasy value, just mostly in PPR leagues, just because Sam Darnold is so incompetent that all he can do is throw it 2 yards to Jameson Crowder and hope he can run for an end zone.
That's what he did. That's what he did last week.
So in all seriousness, I do like Crowder still. I still think he's like flex value. So I do think Crowder is still competent, but I have Perriman on my bench, and I can tell you, he won't be there for long.
I'm just having trouble understanding. I mean, the New York Giants, their head coach in Adam Gase may be the worst head coach of all time.
New York Jets.
The Jets, I'm sorry. The New York Jets head coach, Adam Gase, might be the worst head coach of all time. And they still have not fired this guy. I mean, what in their right mind is keeping this guy?
I do not know what to tell you. I mean, people are saying Darnold's the issue, that we need Trevor Lawrence. I mean, I would love Trevor Lawrence, sure, but I think Darnold is not that bad. But it's Gase. He doesn't like Le'Veon Bell. He doesn't help Darnold at all. What does he bring? He brings nothing.
He likes 37-year-old Frank Gore, so that's what he brings.
Honestly, Frank Gore might be a star with the amount of carries he'd get.
You know what Gase said that really shocked me the other day after the game in the press conference when the Jets were on a 4th and 7. It was late in the game. It was I think it was third quarter or something. They were down and they need a touchdown there. They can't kick a field goal because I think it was a 4-score game at that point. So they obviously needed a touchdown if they wanted to get back in. 4th and 7, they opted to kick a field goal. And Adam Gase, after the game, said that he didn't have any plays in the playbook for 4th and 7. Are you an absolute idiot?
I've never heard that before.
This is the offensive guru. This is the quarterback whisperer. How is this guy not fired?
God.
Look what happened with Tannehill. Man.
Look what happened with Devontae Parker. Look what happened with Kenyon Drake. I mean, all of these guys. No New York Jet football player will ever be fantasy relevant, aside from maybe Jameson Crowder, as long as this guy is their head coach. I mean, it's unbelievable. All right, you got to steer away from the Jets. This is just an ugly topic to talk about. We're going to go over to a big-name player, Davante Adams, who left Sunday's game with a hamstring injury. While this was likely a cautionary move, as it was there was a pretty wide gap in the 2 scores in this game. Is there anything to take away from this?
Yeah, I think there is. Once again on my roster, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I don't want to worry too much about him because it's Aaron Rodgers, but I do think this hurts him because Devontae Adams is his guy. I mean, he's his go-to guy, third down, clutch situations. Devontae Adams is his guy. But now you got to look towards Allen Lazard, MVS, Aaron Jones in the passing game, of course, Jamal Williams. I mean, I don't think it affects Rodgers' value too much, but I think there might be a little decline now that his main target's gone.
Obviously, we know hamstrings can be especially tricky. I think there is, while I still think he is going to play this Sunday and be fine, there is always the concern of re-aggravation, which would not be good because then that means multiple weeks of missed time for Adams. But for now, I think he'll be fine. And it was, like Svarator said, precautionary.
Yep. So that's an interesting situation. I think he'll play as well, but you never know. Now, this was very surprising. Monday Night Football or Sunday? No. When did the
It was
Chiefs play?
Sunday afternoon.
Sunday afternoon. The Chiefs and the Chargers. 5 minutes before the game, it was announced that Justin Herbert, the 6th overall pick, was going to be starting this game, and no one knew why, but now we do. And prior to the game, Tyrod Taylor re-aggravated a chest injury, so he was a last-second scratch. He's considered week to week now. And Anthony Lynn has stated that when healthy, Tyrod Taylor is the starter, and he's getting a lot of hate for that. So what do you make of this situation?
Anthony Lynn is a complete fool for the situation. I know Herbert, and I honestly agree with the situation bringing Taylor out there rather than Herbert to start the season opener. But did you see the way Herbert played against the Kansas City Chiefs, reigning Super Bowl champion? He looked like just a regular starting quarterback, and he almost got them the win. I mean, I think they should have went for it on the 4th-and-1 situation, OT.
Yeah.
But besides that, Patrick Mahomes had to leave a drive down the field to score the touchdown. And I mean, I think Herbert played great, and I think he should be out there week 3. I don't even think it's a question, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Lynn just said that out of respect for Tyrod Taylor, the veteran. But I think that once they reevaluate this thing, they're going to have to start Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert's the future of this organization, and they have to play him. He looked pretty good on Sunday. Yeah, he was making some throws, and he kept them in the game against the Chiefs too. So I think that,
Chiefs.
yeah,
He kept them
I
more
think
than
that
in the game. He gave them the lead.
absolutely.
I
He
mean,
gave them a chance to win. They should have won that game.
Yes,
should
I
have.
think the
So
one mistake Herbert made was 3rd down and 2. He could have clearly ran for the first down, but instead he made a bonehead throw to the middle of the field, rolling left. He threw it to the right, and it was intercepted. That led to the Chiefs' touchdown and 2-point conversion, which tied the game. And I think if you take away that play, I think the Chargers win that game because they kick a field goal, 2-possession game. I think the Chargers hold on and win. All right, our last injury will be Will Fuller, the wide receiver on the Texans, who left with a hamstring injury, who did return, but he did not have any impact in this game, coming back with 0 catches.
I can't deal with this anymore, man. I mean, Will Fuller, he has talent. I think we all know that. This is I know it's at least his 3rd, maybe his 4th year in a row getting injured. I believe his 3rd, maybe. I mean, he has talent. He has these huge games. After week 1, I was so excited for Will Fuller. I'm like, DeAndre Hopkins is gone. He's Deshaun Watson's new guy. And then to put up a goose egg, get hurt again. I mean, I had high hopes for Fuller if he could stay healthy as Watson's number 1 guy, but it's starting to become a little much out there in Houston for him.
yeah. Boy, this is really troubling for Will Fuller. I mean, I can't believe he's hurt yet again. And even before he got hurt, he played 63% of the snaps in this game and only managed 1 target. That's really, really concerning, especially since that the Texans had to throw in this game due to the fact that the Ravens were behind most of the time. But I mean, it's another injury for Will Fuller. If he misses time, Brandon Cooks is a must start, I think, because he's got chemistry with Watson and he's the clear number 1 with Fuller out. But this isn't good news for Will Fuller at all.
You just hate to see it with a guy like Will Fuller who gets injured year in and year out. With him, it's a question of when and not if. I believe that will do it for our injuries, but before we move on to the next segment, just want to throw this out there. Just happened 15 minutes ago. Devontae Freeman to the Giants is officially inked. 1 year, $3 million deal. So we talked about it earlier. We'll see how that plays out. I believe we are moving on
All
to our
right.
next segment now. So
All right. Moving on to the next segment, it is buy or sell. I'm going to read a statement to Thomas and Andrew. They're going to tell me whether they buy that statement or whether they are going to sell it and why. This will be a segment that I think for the most part we'll be doing every week in recap of the prior week. So it'll be a mainstay here. All right, moving forward, we got a very interesting first one that I have no doubt will get some discussion. Teams should try to recover onside kicks when they are kicked at them. Buy or sell?
I'm going to sell this statement. It's all about the player safety, Fish. You can't risk these players getting injured on a crucial, pivotal point in the game. Do not even try to go for the ball.
It was embarrassing. It was straight up embarrassing. It is embarrassing. I have no other
I
words.
know.
What are you talking
Our
about? They
buddy-
didn't want to get injured. They didn't want to try and save the game. I mean,
We know our buddy Andrew Hanlon is a Falcon fan, and
brutal.
I'll tell you what, if I were a Falcon fan, I would have jumped off the roof by now. I've jumped off a roof by now.
Let me say
Yeah,
this
that's a-
though.
that's a-
That
that's a
Dallas player, the Dallas player who recovered the football played it perfectly.
Oh, no. Dallas played it perfectly. We're talking about the Falcons, though.
Oh, trust me, I know. I'm just saying. I mean,
The
how do you
fact-
do that? There was like 3 or 4 foul. Oh my, that's
They didn't want to risk getting hurt.
That's a disgraceful loss. I mean, Dan Quinn should be fired today. I mean, clearly his players didn't know the rule. That's all on the coaching. All right.
true.
Anyway, moving forward after that disgrace, that is the Atlanta Falcons. All right. If we were drafting again today, Kyler Murray and Josh Allen should be quarterbacks 3 and 4 off the
No.
draft board. Buy or sell?
No, but sell. I agree with one of them and not the other. Kyler Murray, yes, he should be going. I mean, the way he's playing, he should be going second for top 3 for sure. But obviously using logic, I mean, Lamar and Mahomes were definitely 1, 2. So Murray should have been 3. If we were drafting today, Murray's 3. I would still take Russell Wilson at the 4 spot, not Josh Allen. Wilson, 9 touchdowns in 2 games, only 1 interception, 82% completion percentage. So Russell Wilson is still my guy at 4. And I mean, I guess you can think about Josh Allen at 5, but I would still take Wilson ahead of Allen for now.
I am going to buy the statement. All right, so I'm going to read you 3 numbers that you're not going to know what they mean. 55%, 184, and 76.6. Those were the career stats of Josh Allen in his completion percentage, his passing yards per game, and his quarterback rating. Now I'm going to read you 3 more numbers. 70%, 365, and 122.9. Those are his 2020 completion percentage, passing yards per game, and quarterback rating. That's all I need to say for Josh Allen. I mean, this guy has just improved so much, even though you could say it's a small sample size, but I mean, you could tell by the way he's playing that he's just improved a lot.
You're telling me
And now I'm going to tell you 2 numbers for a second. 32 and 31. Those are where the defenses that Josh Allen played ranked in the NFL, the Jets and the Dolphins.
Well,
I
they
mean,
were ranked that
Josh
way
Allen-
because they played this man.
No. You cannot tell me that you would rather have
No,
Josh Allen than
no.
Russell Wilson, who is by far the MVP right now. By far.
You can't say you'd rather have Josh Allen than Russell Wilson or Dak Prescott. Josh Allen.
Fish.
Once Josh Allen plays a legitimate defense, we'll see. Well, I think he'll show his true colors. Russell Wilson's great against anybody. Dak Prescott is great for fantasy against anybody. Kyler Murray is absolutely a top 3 quarterback. I mean, no question about that. He's a superstar. But I sell the statement just based on the fact that I'd take some quarterbacks ahead of Josh Allen.
All right, that's why I'm going to be, if we were drafting today, that's why I would win the league, because I would take Josh Allen.
All right. Moving ahead, a guy who was in the top 6 last year, was drafted as a quarterback, Deshaun Watson. Is he a top 8 quarterback rest of the season? Do you buy or sell?
I'll take this one. Coming from Deshaun Watson's fantasy owner, I will have he is not a top 8 quarterback. I can say that. He is not a top 8 quarterback. So I will sell this statement. I mean, when you go down the list, you got Lamar, Mahomes, Wilson, Murray. I mean, Josh Allen, Dak, um,
I got this
Cam
for you, Thomas. I
Newton.
got this for you, Thomas. Lamar, Mahomes, Prescott, Kyler, Allen, Newton. Those are the only guys I would take
Honestly,
over. Those are the only
yeah,
guy I would take over
I
Watson,
think
which makes him a top 8 quarterback. So I am buying this statement.
so. I don't
Eh,
know. I think I would. I think I have Watson and Rodgers, and I think I will be starting Rodgers the rest of the way on.
I
Not the
think
rest of the way, but depending on matchup and if the matchups are both even, I think I might have to go with Aaron Rodgers.
so.
Yeah.
The next three guys that are closest to them, I would say, are Matt Ryan, Ben
Now Ryan,
Roethlisberger,
that's right.
and Aaron Rodgers. And the thing that
Who's the middle one you
separates
said? Who was the middle one you said?
Big Ben.
Big Ben.
So the thing that separates Deshaun Watson from these old dudes
The
is
rushing
that
ability.
is the rushing ability, and the rushing ability for a quarterback is obviously huge, where you get points for every yard they rush. So that's why I think he's better than those guys.
I don't know. I think I can see where you're coming from, of course. I just think Rodgers is throwing the football well right now, so I think he seems like the old Rod, maybe not his prime Rodgers, but he's definitely had a good comeback from last season. I think he's got a hot hand right now, and I think I would take him for that 8 spot right now. I mean, Watson could be 9-10, but I think Rodgers fits right in at that 8.
Now, I buy this statement. Watson played Kansas City, opposite of Josh Allen. Watson played Kansas City, Baltimore, and he gets Pittsburgh this week. Those are some of the 3 best
Yeah.
defenses in the league. And I think I'm about to say something. I'm about to say something right here that's going to stir a lot of controversy, especially from Andrew Sparator, that he was so high on Josh Allen. But I would rather have Deshaun Watson than Josh Allen rest of season. Deshaun Watson is a better football player than Josh Allen.
I like
Allen
that.
will show his true colors against a real defense. And Deshaun Watson, coming up after this week against Pittsburgh, he's going to show his true stardom, and he's going to be a top 6 quarterback the rest of the way, and show Walsh why you did take him as the 6th quarterback off the board.
I like that. I hope you guys are right.
Josh Allen's true colors are that he is a great quarterback. Just want to put that out
Great.
there.
Wow.
Wait a second. Did you watch last year? His completion percentage was one of the worst in the NFL. He's
That,
so
actually.
inaccurate.
He
Yeah,
improved
that's
upon
not
that.
good.
You think you could just go up 15% from last year by not improving by just playing bad defenses? No.
Yes. He
Oh,
played 2 of the
do you
worst
see
D's in
how
the league.
wide
He had a
open
good
these
2
players are?
weeks.
Do you
It's-
see how wide open these guys are?
Maybe it's because the addition of Stephon Diggs to this team really helped him and the Buffalo receiving core. Diggs is a really good wide receiver, which he's always open, like you
Answer
said.
this question. Can you name a Jets cornerback?
No, I cannot name a Jets quarterback. The Jets are like the epitome of the National
Can
Football
you
League.
Can you name someone on the Jets defense?
Don't put me on the
Seriously.
spot like this, Thomas. Don't put me on the
Can
spot.
you? Can you?
No.
And you're gonna tell me Josh Allen's a great quarterback because he shredded up a defense that you can't name
Until
one.
No.
until he proves me otherwise, yes.
I mean, come on.
Well, wait a second. Last year he's wrong. He was wrong.
We're talking
Josh
about
Allen
this
was
year.
Josh Allen was the most inaccurate quarterback last year in the NFL.
We're
And
talking
this
about
year,
this year, though.
Yeah, this year, just because of 2 games, you're going to now all of a sudden make him like he's a top 4 quarterback for fantasy?
That's exactly what I'm going to
absolutely
do.
ridiculous.
That is exactly what I am doing.
Wait a second. So you don't put any stock in the teams he played? Any stock at all?
Obviously that matters, but what matters more is the way he's playing. I mean, he's playing great against these teams. It doesn't matter. They're NFL teams. Besides the Jets, they're NFL teams. I mean,
Oh man. Well, I think the defenses have a little more to do with it than that. But all right, moving forward in this buy or sell, another drafting today question. If we were drafting again today, Aaron Jones is a top 8 overall pick. Buy or sell, Thomas Walsh?
I will buy this. I mean, and not just because of his 45-point performance, but I mean 4 touchdowns. I mean, he's involved in the receiving game. He gets a lot of touches in Green Bay, man. He gets a lot of touches. I mean, his receiving ability, his rushing ability. I mean, if we were drafting today, yes, I think he would still be on the back end, but I think you still have your guys like Zeke, CMC, Saquon. Those guys also go, besides the injuries, of course. I think he can get into that 7-8 area the way he's been playing. I mean, he gets a lot of touches there, and he scores a lot. I believe, what is it, 6 touchdowns in the first 2 weeks? It's either
I
5 or
think
6.
four. I think it was four
Well, he
actually.
scored 4. I'm
He
not
scored
sure
4 in
exactly.
week 2.
Anyway, I'm going to buy this statement as well. The main concern with Aaron Jones coming into this year was the fact that they drafted A.J. Dillon with high draft capital, and they kept Jamal Williams, who basically they were in like a 60-40 split or something like that last year. So the main concern was he going to get the touches? And the answer to that is yes. I mean, if it weren't for that, if he was the workhorse back in this offense, which he is proving to be, this guy is easily a first round pick because he was the running back too last year. So if knowing that he is the lead back in this offense, at least through the first 2 weeks, I would take him in the top 8.
Yeah, and
And
make sure he has 4 touchdowns this year. He only had 3 week 2. So that's my fault. But yeah, I agree, Strator.
yeah, I'll make this one a clean sweep. Aaron Jones is a slam dunk top 8 overall pick with the way he's playing right now. He's in a great offense. He's got plenty of opportunity to score, and he's involved in the passing game too, which just makes him the full package. So definitely top 8 there. All right, moving down to a player we talked about earlier, but putting a different spin on it. When Justin Herbert is the Chargers' full-time starting quarterback, it will be better for Keenan Allen and worse for Mike Williams. Buy or sell, Andrew Sparator?
I am selling this statement. You can't. I mean, obviously, you can't base it off of just one game, but I think this definitely helps Allen. Justin Herbert is looked tremendously better than Tyrod Taylor did in week 1. I mean, in week 1, they could barely move the ball against the Cincinnati Bengals offense. And that's really saying something. So I think for as long as Herbert's the starter, Allen is where you drafted him to be. And Mike Williams is always that guy who had one good week, then he had a couple off weeks, then he had another good week. So I'm not worried about Mike Williams, and I think Keenan Allen's value goes up from what it was after Tyrod Taylor stunk it up.
So that's why I love to completely agree. I think Keenan Allen, I think he benefits a lot from this. Herbert really just looks like I said earlier, he looks like an NFL quarterback. And that surprised me. I thought Herbert would need some time. He looks like an NFL quarterback. He knew what he was doing, and Keenan Allen's going to benefit from that. He had 16 points, and that's like the Keenan Allen that we're used to seeing with Philip Rivers and everything. I mean, Keenan Allen looked very good, and Mike Williams on the other hand, I don't think either quarterback really affects him. I think that Mike Williams, he either has a 50-yard catch or he gets one catch for. I mean, I don't really like Williams at all. I mean, he's just a boomer bust type of guy, and most of the times I don't know why, but most of the times it will be bust.
Yeah, I'm buying the statement. I think Justin Herbert's better for Keenan Allen than Tyrod Taylor is, and I think Mike Williams is better with Tyrod Taylor because I think Justin Herbert, he's a rookie quarterback. He's going to look to get the ball out of his hands quick. That's where Allen excels in the middle of the field, out of the slot. And Mike Williams, I don't know if Herbert's going to stay in there. I mean, I know he took one deep shot to Mike Williams, which the Honey Badger made a great play on. But I just think Tyrod Taylor, he just liked to throw to Mike Williams deep down the field and let him go make a play. So I'll buy it. I'll buy the fact that Herbert's better for Allen and worse than Mike Williams. All right. Moving ahead to a very interesting statement. Calvin Ridley is a better fantasy wide receiver than Julio Jones. Thomas Walsh, buy or sell?
I mean, this was a tough one for me. I'm gonna have to sell this statement. I mean, Ridley has been phenomenal the first 2 weeks, but it is Julio Jones, and I need to see more for me to buy this statement. I think this statement could very well become true. I do, but sell. I think Julio bounces back in a big way for the weeks to come. I mean, it's Julio Jones. I mean, I like Julio still. Ridley though, Ridley I would say is wide receiver one. I think he's wide receiver one the rest of the year. I think Julio's still that top receiver though.
Yeah, I mean this. I know, deep down inside that Julio is a better option, but I'm going to buy the statement. I mean Ridley, like you said, Thomas, he's been phenomenal. His current 16 game pace is 128 receptions, 1,912 yards, and 32 touchdowns. So obviously that's not sustainable, but that doesn't mean he can't be better for fantasy than Julio Jones, who, by the way, rarely ever gets targeted in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, this was such a tough one. I wanted to buy the statement so much. I wanted to say Ridley's better, but I had to sell it in the end. I mean, as Thomas said, it's Julio Jones. I mean, obviously we know that from an NFL standpoint, Jones is clearly the better wide
Oh yeah,
receiver. But Julio Jones, because of that, he gets the double coverage, he gets the tougher coverage, and Ridley's left with one-on-one matchups that he just excels in. So I mean, I wanted to say Ridley. He's been great, but it's still Julio Jones. I would still take Julio Jones rest of season. All right. Uh, Moving forward, you cannot confidently start a Ravens running back this season. Buy or sell Andrew Sparator.
I originally sold this statement, but I think I'm going to take a last second pivot, and I think I'm going to buy the statement. Now, the only thing that could maybe affect this is an injury to Ingram or Dobbins, but I think even if one of them goes down, they sprinkle in a little more Gus Edwards, who actually had a decent week this week. So I think it's going to be pretty hard to predict who is getting the first and second down touches compared to the third down touches, and who's getting the goal line touches. So I'm just steering clear away from this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to buy this statement. Do you know that Gus Edwards actually led the Ravens in carries in week 2?
I did not know that.
In carries. Mark Ingram with 9 and J.K. Dobbins with only 2 carries, which surprised me considering I believe he had 2 rushing touchdowns
He
week
did.
1.
Yep.
Yep.
So for him to only get 2 carries concerned me, especially Gus Edwards getting more than Mark Ingram. I think you can't start a running back there because I think next week Mark Ingram could get more carries, or J.K. Dobbins can have more production. I mean, there's really no certified back there. I mean, you would like to think it would be Ingram, but I mean, I
You
don't
just
know. Then
can't.
after Dobbins' big week, you would think Dobbins might get a little bit more, but then you see more Gus Edwards. You can't trust anyone back there, and I mean, that's what it is. I think the one that's the rushing ability is most impactful for is still Lamar Jackson. So.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy this statement for now, but I think from a long-term perspective, I'm gonna sell it. And here's why. I mean, right now with everybody healthy and they're trying to figure out that backfield, everybody's getting work. One week it's Ingram, next week it's Edwards, next week it could be Dobbins. But I'm gonna buy the fact I'm still gonna have hope that later in the year I can eventually start maybe J.K. Dobbins if he officially breaks out as the clear cut running back there. So I'm gonna sell it long term, but buy this statement for the coming weeks. All right. The next buy or sell is a Tampa Bay oriented one. Andrew Sparator, you are a fanatic of that team,
I am. I actually
and
have
here
on
it
my
is.
throwback Jameis Winston jersey. Rest in peace.
Not sure why, because he's a terrible quarterback. But all right. But this one is about the running backs. Ronald Jones fumbled away the Buccaneers starting running back job to Leonard Fournette. Buy or sell?
I am, for the next couple of weeks, I am selling this statement. I think at any point in any game, Fournette could take over, but he is relying on a mistake, like what happened last week from Ronald Jones, which he fumbled, and clearly that pisses off Bruce Arians. So if he does that again, it spells bad news for Rojo. But for now, I'd still rather start Rojo.
I'm buying the statement. You are not rushing for 12. You're not rushing 12 times for under 3 yards and touchdown, and will not get the ball. Listen, maybe Rojo's out there for the first snap. Maybe he's out there for the first drive, but no. Fournette will
Yeah,
take it. And
I completely. Go ahead, Thomas. Finish.
I was just gonna say, look at the production that happened. He ran 12 for 103, and I believe Jones was 7 for 23. Yes, he was 7 for
And a
23. I mean,
touchdown.
and a touchdown. But production-wise, I mean,
Well,
Fournette had an amazing game.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy this statement also with you, Thomas. And I just think that I think Sperator is completely wrong. I would so rather have Fournette than Ronald Jones at this point. Just because Fournette is playing way better. And Bruce Arians said at the start of the season that the job is Ronald Jones until he screws it up. And if you saw the press conference afterwards, Arians ripped into Ronald Jones saying that it was his mistake. Fournette played 43% of the snaps, which you'd like to see that increase, and Ronald Jones only played 34%. That's
well,
not the kind of number you want if you're going to have the starting running back, the starting job of this backfield.
I'm curious to see what that number was before he fumbled, which is my point in saying that Fournette, for at least for the next maybe 2 or 3 weeks, is going to be relying on a Rojo mistake to take over. So I just think that this is just overall a crazy backfield. It's hard to predict, along with the Rams and the Ravens backfields. This is just one I do not like.
Moving forward, this is our last buy or sell. It has to do with the Sunday night matchup and the new Patriot quarterback. Cam Newton is a must-start rest of season buy or sell. Thomas Walsh.
Buy. I mean, when they're in the red zone, they're looking to score one way, and it has been clearly evident that this one way is running the ball with Cam Newton. And with those rushing yards and with that rushing touchdown value, yes, he put up he's put up a lot the first 2 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
they want to run the ball with Cam into the red zone, and I think it's clearly evident that that is their plan because everyone always knew we liked running, but the way Bill Belichick runs their offense, he did a great job transitioning to Cam and making these plays for Cam to run. But it didn't surprise me, but what really like opened my eyes was that they really wanted to do the QB power on the last play of the game to try to win it as time expired. I didn't agree with the play call, but that just shows you that they want to score by running the ball with Cam Newton, and that's what they're confident in. When you don't call a play with 2 seconds left to win the game, you call your most confident play, and that's what Bill wanted to do. That's what he's confident in. So yes, I would start him.
You got that exact number. He has put up just over 60 fantasy points through 2 games. That puts him at the quarterback 3 overall. And I'm going to agree. I'm going to buy this statement. Like Tom said, the goal line back for this New England Patriots team is Cam Newton.
Cam Newton.
It's Cam Newton. I mean, if he just, I mean, it's going to spell trouble for some defenses if they don't know how to contain him.
Absolutely. I'll make it a clean sweep. This is a total buy. Cam Newton looks like he's back into his MVP form. We had some concerns after week 1. We knew he was a great rusher, but we had some concerns about the passing attack there in New England. All those questions were answered in week 2. Cam Newton threw for just 3 yards under 400 at 397 in a shootout with the Seahawks. Cam Newton has proved he can still hang in there with the best of them, and he should be in the starting lineup for your fantasy team. And if you do happen to have somebody that's maybe better like a Mahomes or a Jackson, and you took Cam Newton late in drafts as a late round flyer, you should definitely be looking to trade one of those guys just to get more position player depth on your team rather than hang on to both of them, because Cam Newton is for sure a must start rest of season. And that's going to do it for our buy or sell segment. And we move ahead to calm or concerned with Thomas Walsh.
Guys, calm or concerned. This will, as we know, many people in the early weeks like to press the panic button on some people, like to start concerning over people and getting scared. So definitely in the early weeks, this is going to be one of our big segments because, as we know in fantasy, a lot of people start to panic based on early weeks, or hopefully some stay calm about some people. So the first player we're going to talk about is Carson Wentz. Nick Fish, calm or concerned?
I think there's only one answer here, and that's you got to be concerned about Carson Wentz. He's looked so brutal the first 2 weeks of the year. Any questions you had about him, whether he was an elite quarterback or not, those have been answered, at least for the first 2 weeks. He's not an elite quarterback and not a fantasy starter. He's been as bad as anyone. Back-to-back weeks, he's had QB ratings of 72.5 and 56.5. He's only had 3 total touchdowns in those weeks. He did not throw a touchdown last week against the Rams. And you really got to look at Wentz. The offensive line has been really bad. He's had limited receiving help around him. Obviously, we know about Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, the tight ends. But when you look at Wentz, you got to figure if he doesn't do it this week against the Bengals, then I don't know what to think about Carson Wentz moving forward, other than he's a bench warmer at best.
I'm going to agree with you guys here. You should already be concerned. You should have been concerned going into the season. And to put the icing on the cake, after he plays the Bengals this week, he gets San Francisco, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore. So you're not going to start him in any of those games. So you might as well just cut ties with him now to save yourself some suffering.
Yeah, of course I will be concerned. I mean, Doug Peterson even said the way he's played is unacceptable. I mean, he's just not playing well. And I want to talk about he does have a lack at the wide receiver position. I mean, there's no other way to put it. But
see, you could make that argument, but the thing is, his wide receivers aren't getting better anytime soon. So
no. I mean, there's a lot of reason for concern, and I know it won't happen. At least I highly don't expect it to happen. I really think that Jalen Hurts might honestly make this offense better because and this is going to be crazy. I mean, I just want to get this out there. If you look at this offense, if you get a mobile quarterback in there, it brings you to an offense like the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, you have your tight end, you have your mobile quarterback, you have your, better running back than Baltimore. I mean, you have Miles Sanders, you have your fast receivers, you got Jalen Rager, and then you got your big boys, you got Ertz and Goddard. I mean, I think you bring in the mobile quarterback, and I think they get more done if they run the playbook the way that they should.
That's very interesting. I would, they have no other choice but to look at Hurts. If Wentz is just this bad, it can't continue.
Okay, so that is it for Carson Wentz. And now, next player, Cincinnati Bengals running back Joe Mixon. Svarator, you are a Joe Mixon owner. Are you calm or are you concerned for Joe Mixon?
I am calm as a baby. I'm calm. I'm sleeping as a baby, as one Nicholas Vasello would say. I mean, last year he got off to a slow start as well. But he did end up picking it up towards the end of the season, and I just think he's going to get the touches in this offense under an offense that is going to continuously get better under first overall selection and Heisman Trophy winner Joe Burrow. I think with him finishing 1,300 total yards the last 2 seasons, I think he's going to do it again and prove everyone wrong. And I think Joe Mixon is going to end as a top 12 fantasy back.
Ladies and gentlemen, history on the first episode of the Fantasy Fish Tank podcast. I'm going to call my first huge fraud of the season on YouTube. Andrew Svarator is a complete fraud. This is so far from the truth, and this is so far from what he thinks about Joe Mixon. It's a complete lie. During Mixon's Thursday night game against the Browns, I don't know if I heard anybody who complained more about Joe Mixon than Andrew Svarator, saying Gio Bernard's an old stiff. Get him out of there. Get Mixon in. I'm so done with Mixon. I don't even know why I started him. Kareem Hunt's better. That's come on. I mean, that's so
right.
different from what you're saying now.
If they're going to be recalling previous statements, I believe you are officially retired from fantasy football, so you can just leave the show now, Fish. Me and Thomas will take it over from here.
First of all, Sperator, you were out of your mind for staying calm at all. I mean, Joe Burrow threw the ball 61 times.
Okay, you think he's going to throw the ball 61 times again?
Wait a second. Sperator said that he's calling me out for saying I released my retirement after my horrible week 1. I believe this week you released the same exact statement and said you were retiring this week.
Well,
Because it was because of performances like Joe Mixon's. You're not calm about him. You're very, very concerned about him.
Okay then. Sperator, I see the huge fraud in you. I understand.
it's huge fraud. That's the term.
First one of the season.
Now we're on to
First
something
one.
this hits home for me. Todd Gurley. I think there's one answer to this. Fish, calm or concern?
Thomas, I don't know if you're going to agree with me, and I hate to say it because it's your player and you're going to really need the running back at the time because of CMC, but I am concerned about
So am
Todd
I.
Gurley.
So am I.
Gurley, if you just look at the snap shares, he's played 46% in week 1, 64% last week, which is better. He got carries, but Gurley just proves to not be a factor in the passing game. I mean, absolutely zero of Todd Gurley in Atlanta's
targets.
passing attack. I mean, when you looked at Todd Gurley coming into the year, you thought, all right, he could be a little healthy. He's a year off of, he's got an off season in recovering from the knee, the arthritis he's got in his knee. But I think that's still a factor. I think that's going to be something that doesn't go away. Gurley is not involved at all with this Atlanta offense. And pretty much looking forward, the only way that Todd Gurley is going to give you a pretty good fantasy game is if he gets in the end zone. He's completely touchdown reliant now, and I think he's a low end running back too at best.
I think I'm also concerned. If you haven't already, you can take him out of the top tier running backs. He just isn't the same ever since he injured his knee. And the numbers are proving that. I mean, he averaged 2.9 yards per carry last week, so going along with his 0 targets. So that's just a bad fantasy week, and I think he's going to be touchdown dependent throughout the rest of the year. So, yeah, a lot of concern with this guy.
Sadly, as an owner, I will have to be concerned. I mean, Brian Hill is getting goal line carries. I mean, he's touchdown dependent, but he's not even getting the ability to score. I mean, Brian Hill's there at the goal line, which I really
Brian
don't.
Hill.
What?
Brian Hill
Brian.
instead of Todd Gurley. That's just saying something.
I don't think it's necessarily Todd Gurley. I think that I don't know why he's not there, but I think maybe that the Falcons front office doesn't want him to get beat. I really couldn't tell you, but because I do not think his knee has affected him to the fact that he's still not a good running back that Brian Hill is in the game.
He's just a shell of his former self.
Yep. And it's sad to see. He was very good, very talented.
Yeah.
Next up, wide receiver in Dallas, Michael Gallup. Andrew Sperator, what are your thoughts?
Well, along with Joe Mixon, this guy is also on my fantasy team. So, Fish, you're probably going to call me a huge fraud again, but I am calm with Michael Gallup. Now, when I say calm, I do not mean I am instantly plugging him into my starting lineup. I think this week he might have to take the week off, but this is a guy who was on the field for 96% of the Cowboys snaps. That is compared to Cooper's 94% and Lamb's 82%. So I think he's going to get more targets. He is not getting the love from Dak Prescott right away, but I think as the season goes on, he will. And I just think he is the most talented receiver on this team. Now you could take whatever you want with that statement, but I'm calm.
I was actually gonna, I wasn't gonna call you a huge fraud because you didn't complain about Michael Gallup. I mean, all right, I don't agree. I'm not equally as calm with him that you are, but I mean that statement, Michael Gallup's better than Amari Cooper.
More talented.
That's so. Yeah, that's even worse. I mean, that's so far from the truth. I mean, just look at both of these guys play and run routes and make catches. All right, but anyway, the point you made about Gallup's snap share and how it's the highest out of the receivers on the Cowboys, that I think is concerning, given that he's only at 10 targets in the first 2 games, 5 a game. That is concerning. He's on the field. Prescott's either just not looking his way, or Gallup is just not getting separation or not getting the job done. So I don't know how you can be calm with Gallup. I mean, they were in a pretty competitive game against the Rams, and they were just in a shootout where they were behind the entire game, and Michael Gallup didn't get any looks from Prescott. That is very, very concerning.
Well, I think I'm looking at this with the glass half full with the snap count thing. I think if he just continues to be on the field, he'll end up getting more targets and have those big games that I drafted him to have.
But
No,
why though? Because CeeDee Lamb has outperformed him, and Amari Cooper is what he is.
At this point, I'm just throwing up a prayer.
I'm concerned. I'm Fish. I mean, 5 catches in the first 2 games. I mean, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb. Those are the guys. They've drafted CeeDee Lamb to be a huge factor, and those are number 1 and number 2. And then we have Zeke. I mean, I'm concerned for Gallup. I really am. Okay. Away from the Dallas receiver, second to last one. We actually talked about him earlier. T.Y. Hilton. Calm or concerned? Fish?
Yeah. At first, I had concerns, but then I just started looking at this Indianapolis offense as a whole, and we obviously talked about the Paris Campbell injury there. I'm gonna stay calm. It's a reserved calm, but I'm gonna stay calm with T.Y. Hilton, and that's just because who are they gonna throw to? I mean, is Pittman Jr. really gonna now step up into the receiver 1 role, and is Zach Pascal gonna play a major role? I mean, Hilton had 9 targets in his first game. Last game was a bit concerning given that, but then again, they were ahead the entire game, so they just ran the ball with Jonathan Taylor. I think Hilton this year is going to be a matchup play. When the Colts, it's not necessarily going to be against good defenses that you start Hilton, because when they have good defenses, they go up and they like to run the ball the entire way. I think you're going to have to play T.Y. Hilton when they play good teams, and it's going to be really competitive just because, I mean, that's where the volume's going to be when they play good teams. And I just think that T.Y. Hilton, I think he'll get his from Phillip Rivers moving forward, given that they've got good matchups for Hilton.
All right, you know what I'm going to pull here? I'm going to pull the second ever huge fraud card on the show.
How was that fraudulent? That's just what I think.
When I was contacting you earlier about trade talks for Michael Pittman Jr., you stated multiple times that this guy is the number 1 receiver on the Colts, and now all of a sudden you're saying T.Y. Hilton is the number 1 guy. So there's your
you know what that's called? That's called leverage in a trade. I'm trying to make it as if I have a really good player. That's called leverage. That's just because I said it doesn't mean it's actually what I think.
Okay,
when I'm trying to get a deal done and trying to when I'm trying to get the better part of a deal.
I'm still concerned about this with T.Y. Hilton. He was outsnapped by Pittman and Pascal, so that is definitely a cause for concern. And right off the bat, he doesn't have a strong connection with Phillip Rivers. Now that might grow throughout the year, that might not. Only 7 catches through 2 games, but you can't trust him in your lineups every week.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I'm calm and concerned at the same time. I never had high hopes for Hilton. I expected him, and I actually just looked. He had 4 catches week 1 and 3 week 2, or vice versa. That's what I expected him to do. I expected him to get 10 points a game. So if I want to talk that way, yeah, I'm calm about him. I mean, I think he'll get 3 to 4 receptions a game for 8, 9, 10 points, maybe but I don't think he's going to be putting up big games. So I guess that's concern. I'm concerned, but I'm calm because I don't know. I never had high expectations for him to begin with, and I just don't see this affecting it that much that he's going to be a every week starter. I mean, he'll give you your 10 points, I think, and if he gets in, he might. If he gets in, I think he might have a big week. But besides that, I don't think he will do much. And now, honestly, to one of the biggest arguments of fantasy football, not arguments, but you'll say, of the first 2 weeks, Zach Ertz, calm or concerned? Fish, Dallas Goedert or Zach Ertz, or both?
So I think I'm going to choose neither if you're asking me to pick for fantasy, but there is definitely cause for concern with Zach Ertz. He's going to be a 30-year-old tight end soon. His future in Philadelphia is unclear. And let's be honest, this is the first time in his career he's really faced legitimate competition from a tight end on his own team in Dallas Goedert. Goedert's outperformed him the entire way so far. I mean, Ertz, he's getting some targets, but Wentz just can't get him the ball, and I don't really see the volume for Zach Ertz. I think Philadelphia tries to run the ball and relieve some stress from Carson Wentz, and I don't really see. I think this whole Philadelphia offense is concerning, and I just don't see Zach Ertz really at this point getting it done for the rest of the season. So I am very concerned about Ertz.
I will have to agree with you there, Fish. I am concerned about Zach Ertz. I've said this multiple times before. A lot of people have said this multiple times before. But the Philadelphia Eagles are choosing not to pay Zach Ertz the money that he is demanding for a reason. And I think that reason is that they have a guy who can put up the same type of numbers as him in Dallas Goedert. And I think by the end of the year, Dallas Goedert will be the tight end one on this team. Now, that's not saying Zach Ertz will immediately come out relevant, but I just think Goddard is going to overtake him, which is obviously a cause for major concern, considering you drafted Zach Ertz in the 4th or 5th round of your leagues.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Clean sweep right here. I would be concerned about Zach Ertz. Dallas Goedert is definitely he's playing well, and like you said, Ertz is getting up in age, and just overall, I mean, Wentz hasn't played well. If Wentz was playing at his best, his elite MVP form in a couple years ago, I would say that both of them could be starters, but he's not. And I think if anyone's gonna get the touchdowns and targets, Dallas Goedert's out targeting him already, so I would be concerned about Zach Ertz. And I believe that does it for the show for our week 2 review. Now, I believe tomorrow we will be back with another fantasy podcast. I mean, week 3 preview, week 3 already, man. I mean, it's going to start to get interesting. We're going to see what managers, what owners can really work through these injuries, and it could be tough. And that'll do it for
Absolutely.
us. We will see you tomorrow, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show, and see you tomorrow.